we studied the sufferings in the 6 respective realms in the chapter The Defects of Samsara. Yesterday, we discussed the sufferings in the realm of gods, which is the last of the 6 realms. As mentioned in Nagarjuna's letter to a friend, gods, despite experiencing temporary happiness, will ultimately fall into the lower realms and endure ceaseless suffering. The Sutra of the Parables includes a story about a god being reborn in the animal realm. Once, the Buddha and his disciples went out to beg for food. Along the way, they came across an old sow and her piglets lying in a filthy pit. Upon seeing this, the Buddha smiled and light radiated from his teeth. The light circled around the Buddha 3 times before dissolving into his chest. Nanda noticed the Buddha's unexpected smile and approached him to ask its meaning. The Buddha was unlike us, who giggle and cry for no reason. There was always a reason for the Buddha's expressions of sadness or joy. The Buddha then shared this story with Nanda and the other monks. Many kalpas ago, there was a wealthy man who had no son, only a daughter. His daughter was stately and intelligent, and her parents loved her dearly. As she grew up, she did not indulge in worldly pleasures like other women. Instead, she sought the true nature of life, contemplating the issues of samsara. Then she questioned her parents, saying, "Everything is like flowing water. Where do suffering and happiness in this world come from? When will they cease?" Hearing this, her parents were impressed by their daughter's intelligence and wisdom, but they could not answer her questions. Because her questions remained unanswered, the daughter felt unhappy. Her parents then made a generous offering on her behalf and invited Brahmins and wise elders from various places. They filled a plate with 7 types of treasures and announced they would give the plate to the person who could answer the questions. At that time, a good-looking man with little wisdom, greedy for the treasures, recklessly declared, "I have the answer." The daughter then repeated her questions. "Everything is like flowing water. Where do suffering and happiness in this world come from? When will they cease?" This man didn't understand the question at all, so he spoke gibberish, saying, "Everything is void and nothingness." The daughter contemplated this and immediately attained a state of nothingness. She then exclaimed, "You are a true master. Your answer benefits me greatly." Later, she was reborn in the perception sphere of nothing whatsoever in the formless realm, and remained in this meditative state for 40 great kalpas. After her merit in the celestial realm was exhausted, she was reborn in the lower realm and became this old sow. Back then, she did not have the merit necessary to encounter a truly qualified teacher. Had she been guided by a great teacher, she might have swiftly attained realization and liberation. Nevertheless, although she practiced meditation, she lacked wisdom, and when the fruition of her meditation was depleted, she fell into a lower realm. Therefore, it is crucial to encounter a qualified teacher. Otherwise, if you only come across an ordinary knowledgeable individual who teaches you the concept of emptiness and some worldly meditation techniques, the instruction may provide a temporary sense of satisfaction, but it will not genuinely guide you toward the path of liberation. Ultimately, this very teaching may even lead to your rebirth as an animal. How meaningless this would be. Thus, we must all understand that, to attain liberation, we must study and realize emptiness. These days, some Dharma masters merely discuss texts related to traditional Chinese culture, such as D.Z. Gui, The Principles of Disciples, and the 1,000-Character Classic. Others propagate simplistic doctrines that help accumulate merit in the human and God realms, and suggest practices like releasing lives, adopting vegetarian diets, worshiping the Buddha, and reciting mantras. Without studying and realizing emptiness, it is impossible for sentient beings to be liberated from samsara. Some people practice worldly yoga or various forms of meditation that can temporarily calm their restless thoughts. However, can these practices truly free them from samsara? It seems highly unlikely. Even if a person is reborn in the celestial realm, they remain trapped within the cycles of rebirth in samsara. Asvaghosha states in Buddhacharita, or the Act of the Buddha, the cyclic life and death of beings in the 5 realms are like stars rotating around. Even celestial beings undergo change and decline, so how can humans remain constant? Thus, we should cultivate detachment from the cycle of rebirth, including in the celestial realms. Some religions encourage people to aspire to be reborn in a celestial realm like heaven, suggesting it is the highest attainable state. It is acceptable to temporarily hold such an aspiration, but one should not mistake ascending to the heavens as the ultimate liberation. At present, many people advocate engagement in the 10 virtues, which serve merely as a means for rebirth in the human and God realms. Even if you are reborn in the desire realm, the form realm, or the formless realm, you will nevertheless end up falling back into the lower realms. It is like a boulder rolling down a mountain. It will eventually reach the bottom of the slope and will not just stop halfway down. Similarly, as long as our afflictive obscurations and cognitive obscurations are not eradicated by the illuminating flame of emptiness, when causes and conditions align, the karmic seeds will naturally sprout, having been nourished by our self-clinging and mental afflictions. This is akin to how a plant seed sprouts after being nourished by water, earth, and sunshine. Thus, we continue to spin in the cycles of samsara and can never attain liberation. Therefore, we should always aspire to attain liberation. The only path toward liberation begins with generating renunciation, abandoning attachment to and yearning for samsara, and vowing not to return to samsara in the next life. It is like a person who falls into a filthy cesspit and finally manages to escape. They will never want to go back again. Similarly, we should generate the same aversion towards samsara. The best example comes from Patrul Rinpoche's root lama, Jigme Gyalwai Nugu, who never experienced even a moment of envy toward fame and wealth. If we can nurture this kind of wisdom, there's hope for our own liberation. However, many people practice Buddhism superficially, with their actions remaining merely on the surface. In this way, it becomes impossible to sever the root of samsara. Let's move to today's text. No matter where we are born in the 6 realms, everything is tied to suffering. It creates suffering, increases suffering, and is driven by suffering. There is nothing beyond it. Life resembles being trapped in a pit of fire, stranded on an island full of murderous ogresses, sinking in a vast abyss, walking on the edge of a knife, or stuck in a filthy cesspool. There is never even a fleeting moment of true peace to be found. The life of Buddha also states, like cohabiting with venomous snakes, where can we find lasting happiness that extends beyond a fleeting moment? In the eyes of a wise individual, the world is a fiery inferno that engulfs us all. Samsara is devoid of any happiness, and beings are constantly in pain and horror. Therefore, who wouldn't want to be free from the suffering of birth, old age, sickness, and death, and liberated from samsara? According to the Sutra of Sublime Dharma of Clear Recollection, beings in hell endure the torment of hellfire. Pretas are plagued by hunger and thirst. Animals suffer from being preyed upon by one another. Humans grapple with the brevity of life. Asuras are tormented by endless wars and conflicts, and even the gods struggle with their own mindlessness. In samsara, true happiness remains elusive. The entirety of samsara resembles the tip of a needle, where even a split second of happiness cannot exist. Samsara is perpetually engulfed by waves of suffering. Bodhisattva Maitreya says, just as there are no pleasant odors in a cesspool, There is no happiness to be found among the 5 realms. Padmasambhava says, "It is said that in this samsara, even the tiniest speck of true happiness cannot be found. And if one does come across a fleeting moment of joy, it will inevitably contain the suffering of change." The Sutra of the Wise and the Foolish says, "Everything is impermanent. Whoever is born will eventually die. Since the 3 worlds are full of suffering, who can find happiness? Regardless of the unseen sufferings in the celestial realms, the world we live in is rife with various disasters, inevitably leading to our disenchantment with samsara. Not to mention the disasters from years past, even in just the past few months. Natural and man-made calamities have occurred one after another. For example, the recent drought in southwest China, which affected 5 provinces including Yunnan, Guizhou, and Sichuan, and impacted more than 50 million people. Many lacked access to drinking water, and a large number of animals perished from dehydration. People did their utmost to mitigate the effects of the drought through various means, including digging wells. However, I heard that out of 1,000 newly dug wells, only 20 had water, which was merely a drop in the bucket. Additionally, the areas affected by drought are increasing, and now many other provinces are experiencing similar conditions. Moreover, 153 people were trapped in a mining accident in Shaanxi province. Some miners were rescued, and the bodies of several victims were recovered. Disasters are occurring around the world as well. On April 10, 2010, a Polish Air Force Tu-154 crashed near the Russian city of Smolensk, killing all 96 people on board. Among the victims were the President of Poland, Lech Kaczynski, and his wife, the President of the National Bank of Poland, the Chief of the Polish General Staff, other senior Polish military officers, Polish government officials, and members of the Polish Parliament. The aircraft was overhauled just a few months prior to the accident. Following this tragedy, the Polish government implemented a regulation prohibiting many key officials from traveling on the same plane in the future. Otherwise, the country could once again be paralyzed by such a tragedy. On April 14, 2010, a 7.1 magnitude earthquake struck the town of Jigu in Yushu Prefecture, Qinghai Province. This devastating event resulted in over 2,000 fatalities and tens of thousands of injuries. After today's class, fellow Sangha members will recite the Mani Mantra and the name of Amitabha for the victims. I hope that Dharma students who listen to today's class will also join in reciting the mantra and the Buddha's name for the deceased. Through the blessings of Avalokiteshvara and Amitabha, we pray that these individuals will soon find liberation from suffering and attain happiness. These victims deserve our utmost compassion, having been unexpectedly struck by this tragic disaster. Many rumors are circulating on social media, suggesting that the current disasters are merely a prelude to doomsday. However, I believe this may be an exaggeration. There must be a rationale behind these ongoing calamities. In the 21st century, humanity has made significant advancements in material development, surpassing any previous century. Nevertheless, human desires and greed are boundless, and the alarming number of animals being killed is a testament to this. During my visit to Qinghai Province for a life release, I observed that locals have changed their methods of slaughtering animals. Previously, they would manually slaughter yaks and sheep, limiting the number to just a few per day. Nowadays, modern machinery is employed, enabling the killing of several hundred animals in a very short span of time. As people become increasingly consumed by greed, it is inevitable that various disasters will continue to occur. Therefore, aside from what happens in the realms of gods and Asuras, which are invisible to us, we can understand that there is no true happiness in samsara, simply by observing events in this world. Even if there is occasional happiness, it will vanish in an instant, like a dewdrop on a green leaf. Recognizing this, we should all cultivate genuine renunciation and reflect on the associated teachings. The more we contemplate these and similar teachings, the clearer it becomes that no matter where we are reborn, whether in the highest realms or the depths of hell, there is not a single moment of true peace or happiness. Ultimately, it is all meaningless. So, what is the purpose of working endlessly just to make a living if we do not strive for liberation? We must reflect deeply on the suffering of samsara until we lose all desire for it, much like a person with a diseased liver turning away from rich, greasy food. Simply hearing about these sufferings and understanding them on a surface level is not enough. We must internalize them. Many monastics and lay people can say things like, samsara is an ocean of suffering, and many worldly people can say, life is full of suffering, and the five aggregates are empty. But do those individuals truly generate disenchantment with samsara? Fully embrace these teachings in our minds and vividly visualize them until we genuinely believe in them. Once we reach that level of conviction, avoiding harmful actions and embracing positive ones will occur naturally without feeling forced. In samsara, even noble beings like some bodhisattvas may endure certain suffering, let alone ordinary people. In the past, many bodhisattvas have said, as long as beings in this world are reborn, they must go through torment regardless. Take Dampa Deshek, 1122 to 1192, of the Kathok lineage as an example. He acknowledged being a bodhisattva of the 8th bhumi upon his parinirvana. However, his biography revealed that he seemed to have experienced numerous sufferings while living in this world. Even noble beings must endure suffering, not to mention us ordinary people. It is like when someone in prison cannot escape the fate of being beaten by prison guards, no matter how much others plead for them. Recently, a few young men from my hometown got into a fight and were apprehended. They reached out to me for assistance through connections. I spoke with a government official in charge, who assured me that these young men would only be detained for 15 days and would not suffer any physical harm. A few days ago, they were released from detention, so I asked them, "Did you get beaten?" "Yes," they replied. "Anyone who is detained there will get beaten." We were certainly beaten. The guards are brutal. Similarly, as long as we remain trapped in samsara, we will experience immense suffering. From the God realms to the hells, happiness cannot be found anywhere. Even if some individuals may appear happy, they are merely concealing their suffering. In reality, there are countless afflictions and torments deeply rooted within their hearts. Therefore, it is crucial for us to give rise to renunciation. If we have conviction about the sufferings of samsara, we will not need to force ourselves to avoid unwholesome deeds and engage in virtuous actions. We will naturally choose virtues over vices. However, some individuals are pretentious. They pretend to meditate, recite sutras, or engage in virtuous deeds in front of others. Nevertheless, they behave recklessly behind others' backs. Everything they do is driven by their attachment to this life, which clearly demonstrates their lack of renunciation. When you truly have renunciation, you will diligently practice every day without oversleeping. Some Buddhists struggle to engage in virtuous actions. For instance, they may feel completely exhausted after just a few prostrations. Why is this the case? It is because they lack sufficient renunciation. If they possess it, engaging in virtuous deeds will become an essential and natural part of their lives. For example, both the Sutra of the Great Heap of Jewels and the Sutra of the Collection of the Original Acts of the Buddha mention the story of Nanda's ordination. Despite slight differences in plot, the stories convey the same message. Without disenchantment with samsara, even if one takes ordination, upholds precepts, and practices Dharma, it remains merely a formality. Here is the story. Nanda, the Buddha's cousin, was deeply attached to his wife Pundarika and was unwilling to leave his worldly life behind. Although the Buddha used skillful methods to convince him to enter the Dharma and become a monk, Nanda still struggled to adhere to the precepts. One day, the Buddha knew that it was time to tame Nanda. He took Nanda to the city for alms and stopped by Nanda's house. Nanda was brushing his wife's hair when he spotted the Buddha from afar. He immediately got up and went downstairs to welcome him. Nanda took the Buddha's bowl and filled it with honey as an offering. However, the Buddha did not take the bowl back and left instead. Nanda then handed the bowl to Ananda, who also refused to accept it. Ananda told Nanda, "Return the bowl to whomever you took it from." Nanda had no choice but to hold the bowl and follow the Buddha. His wife Pundarika witnessed what had just happened and called out, "Nanda, where are you going?" Nanda replied, "I am returning this bowl to the Buddha. I will be back as soon as I am done." She said, "Please make haste. You must return soon." Nanda went to the Buddha's residence, gave the bowl to a monk, and was ready to leave. However, the Buddha stopped him, explained the drawbacks of the 5 desires, and persuaded him to become ordained. Despite his strong reluctance, Nanda felt compelled to obey the Buddha's words. This was because, in his previous lives, while practicing the Bodhisattva path, the Buddha had never disobeyed his parents. As a result, it created a karmic consequence that made it impossible for anyone, including Nanda, to disobey the Buddha. The Buddha asked a barber to shave Nanda's hair. Nanda refused and threatened the barber, saying, "I will fight anyone who dares to shave my head." Then the Buddha said, "Thus come to Nanda." Instantly, Nanda's hair fell away, revealing the appearance of a monk. Other sutras say the Buddha approached Nanda, who was too afraid to fight back, leaving him no choice but to let the barber shave his head. Regardless, Nanda finally became a monk. Nanda was a man born with great merits. He bore 30 marks of a great man, only 2 major marks fewer than the Buddha. After his ordination, Nanda felt that the Buddha was so solemn that he made his monastic robe exactly the same as that of the Buddha. When Nanda donned the robe, several monks mistakenly identified him as the Buddha from a distance, only realizing he was actually Nanda when they got closer. The monks found his attire inappropriate, so they decided to inform the Buddha. The Buddha then established a rule that no monks should ever wear the same monastic robe as him. One day, Nanda donned a fancy robe, eyeshadow, and leather shoes. With an umbrella in his left hand and a begging bowl in his right, Nanda set out to beg for alms. The monks remarked, "Nanda doesn't seem to be a monk of exemplary conduct." The Buddha then decreed that monks should refrain from wearing fancy robes, holding umbrellas, or applying eyeshadow while begging for alms. Although the Buddha no longer permitted him to wear extravagant clothing, Nanda still could not forget the pleasures of the palace and his beautiful wife. Whenever he had a moment, he would draw images of her on tiles and wooden slabs, spending his days gazing at her image. When the monks noticed this, they were displeased and reported it to the Buddha. The Buddha then gathered Nanda and the monks, announcing, "From today onward, you shall not draw or look at the image of a woman." One day, it was Nanda's turn to guard the temple while the others were away. He felt excited and thought to himself, "Finally, I can go home today. As soon as the Buddha goes out for alms, I will return home to see my wife." The Buddha, aware of his thoughts, advised him, "If you want to go out, make sure you close all the doors." After the Buddha and the Sangha had left, Nanda reasoned, "I should first clean the floor and prepare the bath water for the Buddha and the monks, and then I can go home." So he immediately began working. However, each time he finished sweeping one area, dust would reappear in another. Consequently, it took Nanda quite a while, and he still could not manage to clean the floor. The same issue arose when he was preparing the bathwater. As soon as he filled one bottle, the other would spill. In the end, Nanda simply could not fill the bath. Nanda said to himself, "Forget it. Let them handle it when they return. I will just close the monastery's doors and windows before I leave." However, when he closed one window, another opened, and when he closed one door, another opened. Then he thought, "Since it cannot be shut, I will just give up. Even if the Sangha's possessions are stolen, I can replace them because I am wealthy." After Nanda made up his mind, he immediately walked out of the monastery and set off to return home. He thought, "The Buddha will take the main street, so I will choose the side path." But the Buddha knew what Nanda was thinking, so he deliberately returned by the side path. Seeing the Buddha from afar, Nanda hastily hid behind a large tree. However, through his divine power, the Buddha made the tree slowly rise into the air, leaving Nanda exposed. The Buddha then took Nanda back to the monastery. On another occasion, Nanda again tried to escape, and when he saw the Buddha, he hurriedly hid behind a rock. Using his divine power, the Buddha transformed the rock into flat ground, exposing Nanda once more, and took him back again. After these attempted escapes, Nanda's attachment to his wife persisted. Despite being ordained, he continued to refuse to study the monastic disciplines and showed no interest in the Dharma. All he desired was to abandon the precepts and return home. Just as he was about to flee, the Buddha used his miraculous powers to transport Nanda to the peak of a snowy mountain, where he showed him a one-eyed female monkey. The Buddha then asked, "Which do you find more beautiful, this monkey or your wife, Pundarika?" Without hesitation, Nanda replied, "My wife, by 100, even 1,000 times more." "Very well," said the Buddha. "Now let's visit the realm of the gods." The Buddha asked Nanda to take his robe, and they both ascended to the 33 heaven. Upon their arrival, the Buddha sat down and instructed Nanda to explore the surroundings. Nanda observed that each god resided in his own magnificent palace, surrounded by many young goddesses, indulging in unimaginable pleasure, joy, and abundance. However, one palace stood out. It was filled with goddesses, but devoid of any god. Curious, Nanda inquired why. He was told, "Among humans, there is a man named Nanda, the Buddha's cousin, who is living as a monk and following monastic discipline. Because of his actions, he will be reborn among the gods, and this palace is reserved for him." Nanda was overjoyed and said, "I am Nanda. Since I am here, I will stay." Just as he was about to enter the palace, the goddesses stopped him, saying, "You have not perfected the monastic discipline, so you are not allowed to be here yet. You must return to the human realm and come back after your death. To be reborn in the god realms, one must uphold precepts for a long time." Nanda arrived in the god realm due to the Buddha's miraculous power, so he could not remain there for long. It is similar to tourists who wish to take ordination after visiting a monastery, but it is unrealistic because they need to settle their affairs at home. Although Nanda was not allowed to enter the palace, he was still filled with joy. When he returned to the Buddha asked, "Did you see the realm of the gods?" "I certainly did," Nanda replied. "Good. Now tell me, who do you find more beautiful, your wife or the young goddesses?" "The goddesses are far more beautiful," Nanda admitted. "In fact, their beauty surpasses my wife's just as much as hers surpasses that of the one-eyed monkey we saw earlier." After returning to the human world, Nanda lost his attachment to his wife and became fully devoted to practicing monastic discipline. The Buddha then spoke to the monks. saying, "Nanda has renounced worldly life with the aim of being reborn in the divine realms. But you have all become monks to transcend suffering entirely. You and he are on different paths. Do not speak to him. Do not grow close to him, and do not even share a seat with him." The monks followed the Buddha's instructions, leaving Nanda deeply troubled. Hoping for some comfort, he thought, "At least my younger brother, Ananda, will still care for me." But when he approached Ananda, his brother immediately stood up and moved away. Confused, Nanda asked why, and Ananda simply repeated the Buddha's words. Nanda was heartbroken. The monk stopped talking to Nanda because his motivation was impure. He had been greedy for a beautiful woman in the human realm, and now he was greedy for many beautiful goddesses in the god realm. His greed was intense. According to some Vinaya texts, among the Buddha's disciples, Angulimala had the strongest anger and Nanda had the strongest greed. However, in the end, they both achieve arhathood. For ordinary people, greed is indeed a significant problem. One lay practitioner told me, "I can handle almost everything in life well, except for my romantic relationship. I cannot let go of it. It has been detrimental to my spiritual practice. I truly despise it." One day, the Buddha approached Nanda and asked, "Would you like to see the hell realms?" Nanda agreed, and with his miraculous powers, the Buddha transported them there. "Go ahead and take a look," he told him. Nanda wandered through the different levels of hell, observing its various torments. Eventually, he came across an empty pot with flames roaring inside, surrounded by many of the Lord of Death's henchmen. Curious, he asked why no one was inside. They replied, "There is a young relative of the Buddha named Nanda who is currently following monastic discipline in hopes of being reborn as a god. After enjoying the pleasures of the celestial realm, once his merit is exhausted, he will be reborn here." Hearing this, Nanda was horrified. He prepared to run away but was recognized by the henchman who stopped him, saying, "Since you are here, you can stay." Nanda immediately replied, "No way, I must return to the human realm." He then rushed to the Buddha. Nanda wanted to remain in the god realm, but he was not allowed. The Lord of Death's henchmen had desired him earlier in the hell realm, but he had been scared away. The Buddha asked him, "Have you seen what is happening in hell?" Nanda was terrified and answered, "I have." The Buddha asked, "What do you think?" Nanda replied, "It is horrible. When I go back, I won't uphold precepts for the purpose of being reborn as a god." After his return, Nanda reflected deeply. He realized that being reborn among the gods only to eventually fall into the hell realms was meaningless. This understanding sparked a genuine resolve in him to break free from samsara. This story carries profound meaning that everyone should understand. Many novice monks and nuns may not have developed genuine renunciation. For those who have never studied the Dharma, their motivation for becoming monastics may solely be the pursuit of happiness. When I first became a monk, I believed that monastics lived a pure and solemn life. I never really thought about the cyclic rebirths in the three realms, nor did I know that some people take ordination to be reborn as gods. If a monastic lacks renunciation, can they still attain the entity of the precepts when they receive them? According to certain Vinaya masters, the answer is yes. Why is this? Nanda did not possess renunciation when he first became a monk. He took ordination due to the influence of the Buddha's majestic presence, and at one point, he observed the precepts with the intention of being reborn in the realm of the gods. It was only later that he truly cultivated strong renunciation. However, no one could deny the entity of his precepts. After witnessing the hells firsthand, Nanda never transgressed the precepts, not even in the slightest. The Buddha praised him as the disciple with the greatest control over the sense doors. Nanda used to excel in greed, but But after visiting the hells, he underwent a fundamental change. Many Dharma practitioners are similar in this regard. They had strong afflictions prior to ordination, but after becoming monastics, their attitudes and behaviors underwent a drastic transformation, leading to the diminishment of many afflictions. This transformation is made possible by the power of the Dharma and is attainable by anyone. However, if a person is unaware that the three worlds are filled with suffering, they may struggle to achieve the same transformation. It is, however, easy for a noble being to recognize that the three worlds are filled with suffering. As stated in the Sutra on Cause and Effect in the past and present, Bodhisattvas observe the five realms with their divine eyes, and great compassion arises in them. They then contemplate, in the three worlds, happiness can be found nowhere. Yet many people do not know this. Like drunks, they mistake madness for pleasure. The Mahaprajnaparamita Sutra says, "The fools are attached and dwell in the six realms, which resemble houses engulfed in flames of life and death. Yet they do not want to renounce it." In the eyes of the wise, samsara resembles a house on fire, a whirlpool, or an armory, places they do not wish to inhabit. However, ordinary people are so attached to samsara that even though they are in the burning house of samsara, they perceive it as a garden and a source of joy. Consequently, they cling to samsara and resist leaving. Thus, through studying the words of my perfect teacher this time, I hope you can sincerely renounce this world from the depths of your hearts, enabling you to truly see through the nature of life, be free from attachments, and be at ease. What exactly should we see through? The nature of both this life and future lives. If you relinquish this life, but still wish to be reborn in the celestial realm, or to become more beautiful and wealthier in the next life, your aspiration remains superficial. It states in the three principal aspects of the path: practice on the preciousness of human life and the impermanence of life, so one can let go of this life. Practice on the defects of samsara and the law of cause and effect, so one can let go of future lives. Therefore, it is only by understanding the nature of this life and future lives that you can genuinely cultivate renunciation. With renunciation, it becomes easy to engage in a successful Dharma practice. However, for many individuals, the pursuit of the Dharma is not about renouncing samsara, but rather about seeking blessings for their current lives. I heard a story about a government official who placed a Chinese yuan 100 bill in front of a Buddha statue and whispered, "Buddha, please bless me. I offer you Chinese yuan 100 today. Please remember this. Wherever I go, please watch over me at all times and remove any obstacles from my path." Does such a person have renunciation? Of course not. He merely worships the Buddha to gain promotion, wealth, safety, and pleasure. Or worse yet, he might ask the Buddha to bless him so that his corrupt conduct remains concealed. Can I say this? I believe this could be the reason, considering the prevalent corruption today. Therefore, the aspiration to be free from samsara is very important. However, most worldly people feel indifferent about it. Some Buddhists study the Dharma only superficially. They rarely engage deeply with the teachings and lack practical experience of the defects of samsara in common preliminary practices, let alone in the great perfection or the great middle way. Ironically, such Buddhists enjoy talking the talk, and sometimes they even consider themselves to be Buddhas. They believe they have already attained Buddhahood the moment they sit on a lotus seat they have constructed. In their eyes, Buddhas and Bodhisattvas are equivalent to successful entrepreneurs or millionaires, and beyond that, they have no special qualities. As for us Buddhists who aspire to delve deeply into the Dharma, we must have faith in the Buddha, cultivate renunciation toward samsara, and develop great compassion for sentient beings. By doing so, our practice can be meaningful. Otherwise, if we only study the Dharma briefly from a theoretical perspective, we remain far from the true path of the Dharma. Simply speaking eloquently about these matters is meaningless. The crucial aspect is to engage in self-reflection by asking yourself, do I desire liberation? Once you have studied Nanda's story, you can clarify the objective of your Dharma pursuit, whether you are a monastic or a lay practitioner. By doing so, you will come to understand that true and lasting happiness can only be achieved by transcending samsara. The ritual of refuge and reverence for the disciples of Shakya states, "In heavens and on earth, I alone am the honored one. Everywhere in the three worlds, everything is full of suffering. Happiness can be found nowhere. In this world, the only honored noble being is the Buddha. Only the Buddha teaches the truth that samsara is full of nothing but suffering. No other religious leader, Brahma, or Brahmin has ever pointed this out. Therefore, this truth is extremely profound. For most people, it is difficult to accept, except for those beings with the right karmic affinity.